Hi. I wondered if you've noticed how we are increasingly living in our silos, not connecting with each other. Many of us live behind huge walls, myself included, electric fences, barbed wire, in complexes and gated communities. And we do this for good reason. It's for our own safety. But those walls and electric fences and gated communities can also stop others from helping and being able to help us when we need help. Today I don't have any answers for us, except that on Saturday night, something dreadful happened to a dog because of our high walls and electric fences and our silos that we're living on. And I'm still feeling ill from what happened. I'm also feeling angry, frustrated, helpless, and deeply, deeply sad. In fact, the word I would use is devastated. I've run through what happened 1,000 times or more in my head. What could I have done differently? How could this have ended differently? But what happened, happened, and there's nothing I can do to change it. I arrived home as it was getting dark, and I heard the most dreadful cry. I didn't know if it was human or animal, and I can't even describe that cry, but that cry is still haunting me today. Someone or something was in distress. I got hold of the ladder to see where this noise was coming from and what it was. What I saw caused my blood to run cold and moved me into a frenzy of activity. There was a dog in the neighboring complex in a pool clinging on for dear life and crying for help, and there was no one to assist it. Now one would think that it would be easy to get that dog help immediately, but that wasn't the case because of the way we're living, because of the way we're forced to live. Between us and the dog were 2 electric fences on huge walls. I got hold of Lloyd and I ran to the neighboring complex, but because we live in these times where crime is rife, no one would let me in. No one would even listen to me, in fact, no matter how hard I tried. Eventually some people did listen, but by this stage, it was getting late and the dog was in deep distress. So there were a few people trying to help, and even though we said that there's a drowning dog and we begged for help, I know I begged, I pleaded, I pressed buttons, I told everyone the story and said, please, please help us. No one would let us in. And I knew that if we didn't get in, that dog wasn't going to make it. It seemed unable to find the steps, and I think because it had got dark by then. The tragedy, my devastation, is that the yelping stopped before we could get in. He didn't make it. You can imagine how I felt, how we all felt. Helpless, angry. In fact, angry doesn't even begin to describe it. There are no words to describe how I was feeling. So why am I telling you this? Because as I lay awake on Saturday night, filled with frustration, anger, devastation, the sense of helplessness that I hadn't been able to get to that dog, emotions flowing one on top of the other, and hearing that crying, I began to think about what had happened and why. Why would no one let me in the beginning? And I had to ask myself, would I have let a stranger into our complex? And I came to realize, as I said earlier, that we are less and less connected as communities because of crime and the way we're living. We're being forced to live in our silos. We're becoming more and more insular as humans for our own safety. And if it's not our problem, we're told, don't get involved because you may get hurt. And it's true that we can't trust people we don't know. There are so many scammers and criminals out there, but I'm convinced that becoming more and more isolated and insular will ultimately harm us. And as I've said, I don't have the answer today. But what I do know is that that which is outside our silos will eventually impact us one day. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, but ultimately it will impact on us. And I just wanted us to become more aware of how we're living and the possible consequences of it. I don't know how we can change it. Maybe you have some ideas. I think we need to communicate more, be more involved, be more aware. But maybe we also need to think very carefully about how we vote at the end of the month.